Welcome to the Moms Makin Dough podcast. I'm your host, Kendra Hewitt, and today is episode 50. That is just a wow, right? Like 50, I've done 50 episodes. I have loved every second of this. It is such a creative outlet for me. But I have to be honest, this episode is feeling personal because it is something that keeps showing up. And I always like to say, this is the most ironic part. I had an interview scheduled to do this episode, and the person had to reschedule. So I was like, shit, what am I going to talk about? And I was like, well, what is the reoccurring theme the last couple weeks that keeps presenting itself in different ways? I always say whatever it keeps coming up consistently to present itself means it needs to be spoken about, spoken to, or is showing up to make you aware of something. So I just really, truly believe that. So this is something, like I said, that's a little bit personal because it's been coming up in my client conversations. It's been coming up in family conversations, dynamics. And it's also just been something that's been really coming up for myself. Like I've been putting a lot of thought and feeling into the last couple weeks. And I'm going to bring it to a specific conversation for the context of this episode. And it was a conversation with a client. And because I coach entrepreneurs, this is a very common conversation. I feel like I'm pushing myself. I want to push harder. I feel like I'm constantly pushing this language, right? I'm always grinding. I love hustling. Oh man, that one felt personal to me when I just said that because I was addicted to the grind and the hustle for so long. I know what that means when an entrepreneur says that. And I know what path you're on when you really believe that. All I need to do is hustle harder or hustle more or, put my nose to the grindstone. And I remember this specific client, I said to her, when you use the word push, what does that mean to you? And it started this conversation about how, in my mind, words have meaning and the language we use has meaning. And nothing could be more true than that statement alone in any area of our lives. The words we're using to describe it is really indicative of what we're going to create. So I asked her what push meant to her because I told her when I hear you say push and I hear you say it so often, that push to me means resistance. It feels force. I feel burnout and exhaustion for you. And I see your addiction to the chaos is what I said to her. And she was just like deadpan stopped. Because she was letting it sink in, and I gave her that moment to let it sink in. And I took the opportunity to tell her an example. And most of you know this, but I love to work out. And I chose with this client not to use this example. I chose to use a different one, which was she also lives in New England. And we are having massive snowy winter here in New England, like a true New England winter, I like to say. But we haven't had a true New England winter in so long that it feels weird. Right? It feels there's a lot of complaining going on from often myself included. And it made me think about something so simple. And to put it in context, this is what I shared with her. I said, if you went outside and someone you knew or someone you didn't know was trapped under their car and you went out, especially with the snow present, and you tried to push that car off of them, you would only spin your wheels. You might get some initial movement, but what you would be setting yourself up for was resistance. Let's say you got some initial movement forward, you're pushing from behind, and that then the car kind of, you push for so long and then it kind of rolls back towards you. And now you have to start all over. And you are grinding and using all of your energy to try to get this car off this person. Now, in a situation like this, adrenaline's going to be pumping no matter if you're male, female, And for both parties, the person underneath the car and the person pushing, right? That's part of our survival mechanism. And instead, have any of you ever heard a story? This is what I asked her, which I've definitely heard, where a mom has superhuman powers and she will go over and she will get underneath the car in a deadlift position and she will pull the car up. And that car, she will be able to lift with ease to free the person stuck underneath it. And my client at this time, she said, oh yeah, I've heard stories like that before. And I said, I want you to start to think about the difference between pushing that meets resistance and pulling that actually creates momentum, that makes it the process, in this case, building a business, a lot easier if we learn how to pull more than we learn how to push. And we started talking about how what areas in her business she was doing more pushing than pulling and how we had to flip the script on that. And it got me thinking about, when I was done with this call with her, about how we are also really, there's a lot of us, myself included at times, like I said, I'm holding up the mirror for myself of like, where am I pushing? And also another way to look at pushing is thinking about it as scarcity, right? And then where are areas that I'm pushing even my time, pushing my life forward, instead of learning how to pull opportunity in a financial sense and or just a life in general towards me. Because if we think about push as scarcity and pull as attracting abundance, we start to see massive shifts in not only our finances, but our lives. So today's episode is going to be called Stop Pushing Money Away and Start Pulling It Towards You, with this in mind. Because we're going to talk about how the power of words that also creates our language and the patterns of language we're using on a consistent basis, and how it affects our money, and then get to some, reconciling on like creating some real clarity in your life so that you can actually create change when it comes to your finances. Because here we are halfway through February. It's Valentine's weekend, and a lot of people that set New Year's resolutions in January, they are long gone because they have not made subtle shifts in even the language they are using in their everyday lives when it comes to their money and the quality of their life. And I love to talk about words because I think this is one of the most fundamental things of the English language, is about how words have the meaning we attach to it. And we often don't. We learn grammar, we learn spelling, we learn all of this vocabulary, right? When we're in school as kids, learning the English language and learning how to use it correctly, which I don't even do at times, right? And words, but we don't spend a lot of time learning how words have value and meaning, especially when they are repetitively repeated in our everyday existence. And I want to quote my amazing mentor and someone I really, really am always inspired of through every phase of life, but he was the beginning really that taught me this principle. It's also a principle, if you know NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, that words have meaning. And quality, one of Tony Robbins' favorite things to say was the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the quality of questions you ask. And what that means is, how I interpret that, is that if you want different answers, that requires you to ask different questions. And sometimes that requires not an upgrade in your vocabulary, not an upgrade in your grammar, not an upgrade in your spelling abilities, but it requires an upgrade for you to look at the language you're using when it comes to your money and your life on a daily basis. Something that we are not encouraged to do, and this is a fundamental of our money blueprint. And the base is always going to be our money blueprint. What do we unconsciously believe about money? And how is it helping? How is it running our lives for good and not so good? So scarcity language creates contraction, is what I like to say. and provision language creates possibility. That is a very distinct thing that we want to cover. I'm going to cover it in depth on this episode. Because I think when people talk about this, it's very easy to dismiss and discount the power of our words and just put what I call lipstick on the pig, like paint our language with positives. Oh, I said a negative word. Let me just make that into a positive. No, that is not the kind of shifts we're talking about making. I'm talking about shifts in what those words mean to you, just like I confronted my client on what does the word push mean to you? Because the word push to her at that time was covered in positivity. And in my opinion, push was, like I said, there's times when, yes, you need to push. You need to push a deadline, or you need to push, someone into a different time slot, or you need to push to get something done. But I prefer to spend a lot more time pulling and consciously thinking about pulling and attracting rather than pushing, which in my definition also meets resistance. So I want you to really kind of think about that is some personal shifts. Like I'll share some of the ones that have really, really made a difference in the last couple of weeks for me. And I'm going to share a little bit of a story too. Is one of the things that I love and I've been teaching my daughter is something very popular, which is we can do hard things. The saying, we can do hard things. And I feel very comfortable with that saying and I believe it. But I started to realize recently that that's a half truth. And a half truth means it is somewhat true. There's part of it that's true, but there's another part to it that maybe I'm not aware of, maybe I'm missing. And that part for me that I've just personally got to is we can do hard things, which I believe to be true, but we can also do things that come easily. Or things can be easy. They don't always have to be hard. But some people, I'll hear language it a little bit different. They'll say like, the universe always provides. I am fully provided for has been a really big one of mine lately that has made massive shifts in not only my every area of my life, but in my finances. Everything I need is available to me, meaning I am not limited of resources. And I'll give you an example of questions different. Everything I need is available to me is obviously a statement. But sometimes what would come up with a question like this was like, why is everything so hard for me? When I believe we can do hard things, the question becomes, why is everything so hard for me? Or if something's easy, then it's too good to be true because it's not hard. So just like thinking about like shifting some of my language around this. And this certainly isn't about pretending everything is easy. It's about choosing words consciously that allow you to start to create leadership in your own life, in your finances, and in your family's future. Instead of just merely surviving, which is what as a society, we are just really kind of just conditioned to do unconsciously unless we start to build some awareness of it. So that's where like this hard versus easy shift is really showing up for me is that, yes, we can do hard things, but I'm also capable of doing easy things. Mind blown for me. Like I was like, holy shit, that was a huge shift. And not only am I seeing this play out in my finances, the hardest category for me right now is my parenting. I have a toddler. So I'm being so meticulous and intentional about what I'm teaching and the foundation I'm laying for her. She is teaching me and holding a mirror up to me every freaking second of the day. And I am having to lean into, oh shit, when I say, why is this so hard for me is, what are the things that are easy? What are the things that come more naturally to me? Can I spend more time focusing on those things? Because here's the challenge, or here's what I believe to be true right now. Your brain will look for proof of the questions you ask it. So if you start asking different questions, you're going to get different answers. And also, we are so conditioned, especially as entrepreneurs, to always be in our brain thinking about how do we solve this problem? We get paid a lot of times why people become an entrepreneur is to solve problems because they get really freaking good at it. And they create a business that solves a problem, usually a problem they once had themselves, just like I did. and multiple times for multiple different problems, right? But have you ever heard the saying, and this is one of my favorites, again, also something else that's been presenting and coming up a lot, is when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And that's exactly what happens with our money language. Let me explain more. If your words are built around struggle, you will filter. This is a physiological thing. You will filter for struggle. This system is called I think it's a reticular activating system. Again, principle of Tony Robbins' teaching, principle of NLP, right? And I'll give you an example. How many of you have seen those weird ass, sorry if you like this cars that look like spaceships? I don't even know what makes them. It literally looks like a car going into war to me, or something out of Star Trek or Star Wars. And I don't even know what they're called. So, but hopefully you guys will get the gist of this. And it's so interesting because since I've become aware of that car, I literally am shocked at how many people are buying this ugly car. It must have some other meaning and purpose that I don't understand. But my brain, because I started thinking about how ugly this car is, I now see it freaking everywhere. And that is a perfect example. That system, that reticular activating system, once you start to see something, you can't unsee it. So if your words are built on struggle around your finances, you will start to always filter for struggle. Money will be hard. Money will always be your demise. You'll always be bad with money. You'll never have enough money. But if your words shift towards alignment, aka abundance, you start to notice opportunities very, very differently instead of filtering for struggle. And then let's tie this to the push-pull where I started. Push language equals force. It equals urgency. It equals scarcity, right? How many of you ever seen a sales pitch, which they teach this in like Sales 101, is like to create urgency. We only have 3 available and when they're gone, they're out. Urgency, right? No one likes to buy from that place. I certainly don't like to buy from it. And guess what? If I don't like to buy from it, chances are I probably won't sell that way, right? Because push language is more a pushy salesman. You are forcing a close. I think about the quintessential example is always going to be the used car salesman, stigma, right? Which, man, I've bought cars from people that were definitely not like that, right? Because they had different language, different tools, different resources where the sale did not feel forced. It did not feel urgent. It wasn't because I needed a new car that day. I had time to purchase it, right? So push language not only affects our buying strategies, it also affects our selling and positioning strategies. So if we are selling from a place of scarcity, meaning I've just got to get at this sale to pay my mortgage this month, you're going to have a very different approach than if you use pull language. And pull language is much more attraction based. It's alignment. You're in alignment and you simply have more clarity because you feel called instead of feeling closed. You feel called to sign up for that program. You feel called to message that person and ask if they could help you. You feel called towards doing something that will shift your family's financial future instead of feeling obligated, forced. I have to do this. And this is where a big, huge language shift also can happen is I don't have to do anything. I get to, right? I say that a lot lately too. This has been another big, huge shift for me. It's just like even the gym. You will never hear me language. I have to go to the gym. It will always be, I get to go to the gym. I can't wait to go to the gym. I know the gym to me is my place where I fill my cup first before I fill everyone else's. And so for me, it's a much more pull. I have a pull towards showing up at the gym Versus if you tell me, hey, I need you to go work out right now because I want you to do this, it's a push. And you're going to meet with what? Resistance. Just like if we pushed that car to the snowbank instead of pulled it by deadlifting it off that person that needed that support or that saving, I guess I should say. So practical money language swaps. What are some ways that we can do so? Easiest one I think of all the time. Money's hard. Money is a skill I'm strengthening. That's the swap, right? What if you said money's from hard? And here's the thing. When you start paying attention to this, like I said, your reticular activating system is being reticulated right now, even if that's a word. Again, grammar, and vocabulary, not my strong point, is going to start to focus and look for like, hey, how many times am I saying money is hard? Because again, you're going to filter for struggle if you're saying money is hard, instead of money's a skill I'm strengthening, meaning I'm looking for new ways of even wording how I think about money. Now, the second one, I'm behind. Man, this one still haunts me at times for a very long time. I'm behind. Some people really love and get addicted to being an underdog. I used to be one of them. I am no longer. I have overcome this addiction, and I replace it with I'm recalibrating, or I'm reprioritizing is a big one for me. And this is how I speak to myself. Sometimes I speak it out loud to other people, but it's a different, I'm behind means I need to be pushed, and I'm recalibrating or I'm reprioritizing means I'm pulling myself towards something. I have to grind. Again, old habits die hard. This language really just is still on its way out with me. I love the grind, and I no longer am in a relationship with it. I'm building momentum instead, or I'm creating is another one I use just to switch. I can't afford that. Probably number one, that's not in alignment for me right now. Huge shift, small words, afford to aligned, big, big difference. I'm overwhelmed. This is also where I'm reprioritizing. When you change the wording of your money, you change the direction of your attention, and attention then drives action, right? So you can't just change the word. You have to literally keep rewiring this pattern in your brain of using this language. But this is the first step, and is really identifying the words you're using, then how you're using them in your everyday language is the second step. And then the third step is going to be creating clarity that allows you to then move to change. Because language shifts without clarity on where you want to go just become noise. They just become distractions. Most people, in my opinion, do not have a money problem. They have an unclear priority problem. And most people don't want to sit and ask themselves questions, right? And again, like we talked about at the beginning, quality of your questions is going to determine the quality of your life in any area of it. Quality of your finances, quality of your relationships, quality of your health. And this is where I want you to really just start. I'm going to ask you some questions for you to ask yourself, whether you're driving, whether you're walking your dog, whether you're doing your dishes right now, is I want you to take these in and then take time to actually sit down and record your answers. What do you really freaking want? Do you want debt freedom when it comes to your money? Do you want more vacation time? Do you want to be more present with your kids? Do you want the ability to say yes without stress? Do you want to give your children something different that you didn't have? Whether that be time, money, energy, presence. Doesn't have to be just money in this context. If your money feels out of alignment, it's usually not because you're bad with money. It's just because you have not consistently created clarity or chosen what your priorities are. And priorities are a moving target. They always are going to be needing adjusting. And so for you to really, really start making some clear decisions and creating some clarity on the direction you want to go, that means you have to ask different questions. And clarity is directed by the language you're using. Language is going to direct your decisions. And again, man, Tony Robbins is just like all over this episode today. Fundamental core stuff he teaches, like in his Awaken the Giant Within book, which I think I read the first time when I was 17 years old. And that book changed my life, still changes people's lives. Even like I said, it was written, 40 years ago now. He always says it is a moment of your decisions that your destiny is created. So if language directs decisions, we need to really be sensitive on what that language is, because ultimately it's decisions that create your alignment. And so my challenge to you as my listeners for this episode is I want you to do a 24-hour language audit. I want you to notice, what are the words you use when you think or talk about money? Are they, I can't afford it? Is it, money's hard? Is it, I'm behind? Is it, I have to grind harder? Is it, I can't afford that? Is it, I'm overwhelmed, so I'll do nothing? Whatever it is, let's dial it in. And then I want you to specifically focus on catching words that sound like push, hard, stuck, behind, negative words that we just want to give some awareness to, and start to look at what is our definition. Just like I asked my client, what's your definition of push? Like, how do you define that? Because in her book, push was like a positive word. And we started to rewire that day. And I want you to do that next, is pick one word, whether it's push, whether it's hard, whether it's stuck, whether it's broke. Oh God, that one grinds me. And swap one phrase this week or one word this week into something that actually does pull you towards looking at your finances, working with them, feeling ease with them, seeing opportunity with them. And here's what I want you to remember as we close today. Maybe, just like my client, you don't need to push harder. Maybe you don't need another strategy. You don't need another spreadsheet or another late night trying to force something to happen in your finances, in your family, in your life. Because when you keep telling yourself money is hard, your nervous system braces and responds for the struggle that's about to ensue. When you tell yourself you're behind, you are allowing yourself to stay put and stuck in survival mode. And when you believe you have to push all the time, you forget that alignment creates far more momentum than force ever could. Because words matter, language shapes direction, and clarity, real clarity, is what turns intention into action. And decisions create alignment in your money, in your life, in your family, in your future. So instead of asking yourself, like I am doing, on a very consistent basis and feeling the effects of this rewiring that's not only happening in my nervous system, but in my brain and in my soul, what if I started asking and stopped asking, I should say, why is this so hard? And I started to ask myself, well, what feels easy? What feels aligned to me right now? What am I actually trying to build with my money, with my time, with my family, and my life? Because when you get clear, your language changes. And when your language changes, your decisions will change too. And when your decisions change, your entire relationship with money, with yourself, with your family, with your life will start to shift. You don't have to push your way into the life you want. What if you get to pull it towards you instead? One word this week, one choice, one aligned step at a time. And that is episode 50 of the Moms Making Dough podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please, please, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Half the times I do these episodes, it's me just working through and condensing all of the stuff that's going on in my own personal life, hoping that it will hit a chord, strike a chord. Yeah, strike a chord, or maybe hit a nail. I don't know. In one of you. And all I ask is if you are enjoying and getting value out of this podcast, please share it with someone else who might not know about Moms Making Dough, who would also be able to use this information. And if you are feeling super, super generous and abundant, I would love and appreciate any reviews and or listener questions that give me ideas for episode content. I'm coming up on 1 year of doing this podcast. It has been extremely rewarding. It's an unbelievable creative outlet for me. And I am really excited for some of the things I have coming down the pipeline with this show. And I hope I see you on the next episode of Moms Making Dough.